On November 13th, IDF shared a video under the title of Exclusive Raw Footage, confirming they found 2 tunnels that belong to Hamas. In this video, we will carefully analyze this footage and see the truth. Let's begin. First, this video can be split into 4 parts. Part 1, the house of one of the Hamas members. Part 2, first tunnel, which is located beside a school. Part 3, second tunnel, which is suspected to be an operational tunnel used by Hamas. Part 4, basement of Ron TC Hospital. Now, let's start with the first part. We will watch it first, then we'll analyze it.
I'm here in Gaza City. We are here next to a house of a terrorist. This is one of the senior terrorists who is the head of the operational naval operations that led the raids into Israel. His house is right next to a school.
Fortunately, we found pictures of this same building that we want to share with you. First, we want you to compare one of these pictures with the video and see by your eyes if it is the same building. You can pause the video to see the picture. Now, you can see these 2 doors in the picture and the video are the same. They open in this motion because they have rails and you can see them here. You see this shield, it's tightened with 3 wires on the wall. You can count them, 1, 2, 3, and they are the same 3 cables on the video. You can see them clearly here. Now, let's go to the other left side of the building. As you see again on this part, it's the same in the video. This a black door like this one. And this window is the same as this one. Also, this painting has Arabic text as the video. Everything is the same as you see. Last but not least, let us check this text also. As you see again and again, everything is the same. The same text we have seen the other one. Also above the text, there's a window like the other one. Also, we found other pictures from CNN showing the same place. Now, after we proved this building is the same one in the video. Now let's talk about the building itself. Let's zoom in and analyze the Arabic text on it. The first one says Department of Educational Books and Publications. The second one says East Gaza Directorate, and the third one says Book Section. I think you don't even need a translation for these words to understand that. This building is just a facility for distributing textbooks to students. You can see clearly textbooks all around. In seconds, we will show you more pictures of this facility. But first, we need to address another point quickly. The IDF spokesperson said the facility is next to a school. That's the only thing so far he said is true.
His house is right next to a school.
But what he doesn't know is these kinds of facilities are usually built beside schools to make the logistics of storing and managing and handling books easier between the facility and the school, because this process happens frequently each year. One more thing you should know is these facilities are owned by the Palestinian Ministry of Education, meaning it's a civilian institution owned by the Palestinian state, and it's impossible to be person's house. Now let us share with you more pictures inside the facility. As you can see, it's a facility for distributing textbooks, as we said previously. I want to tell you where we got these pictures from. The pictures from last year's first semester of the new academic year. That was covered by multiple articles from Palestinian news media. I will share with you some of these articles right now. As you can tell from the title, Gaza launches a campaign to distribute textbooks to schools, and you can see below the title the date of this article. And it's in August 2022. You can pause and read for yourself the whole article. For time's sake, we'll not read all of this article. And the summary of the article was the General Administration of Educational Books and Publications has begun a campaign to distribute textbooks for the first semester of the new academic year 2022-2023 to schools in the governorates of Gaza. Now, let's see another article with the same facility pictures. I will translate the page for you so that you can read it. It's talking about the same news as the previous article. Again, you can pause and read it for yourself. Now, third one. As you can see again, these photos are the same photos that we showed you before. I will translate if you want to read the article. So, to recap what we have seen in this part 1 of this video, we have concluded the building behind the IDF spokesman isn't a home of somebody. It is a facility owned by the Palestinian Ministry of Education. Now, my question for IDF is why didn't go inside and record on camera what they found? I'm pretty sure if it's a home for one of Hamas members, they will find a lot of evidence there. But they didn't show us anything then pointing to that building. This part lacks proof. Now moving on to the next part. Let's watch it first, then we will analyze it together as we did in part 1. Let's begin.
His house is 200 yards from the hospital of Rantisi. Next to his house, there is a tunnel.
Now the first thing that caught my attention is the screen of this rugged display controller device. The IDF puts blur on top of the screen. If you still didn't see it, we will zoom in for a second. But remember, they said the video is raw footage. And if you don't know what raw footage stands for, let me tell you. Raw footage is all of the unprocessed and unedited video files gathered from the video shoot that come directly from the camera, meaning the video shouldn't be edited in any form. But as we can see, there is a blur was added to the edges of the screen. Now this raises a big question. Why the IDF blur the screen edges and what they are trying to hide? Let's try to answer this question. First, you need to know that these devices support footage playback also, meaning you can watch what you have recorded before. Now, I want to share with you an illustration that explains the difference between live view and playback view so that you understand the reason behind the blur we have seen. So, the illustration of the live view has some details that indicate you are in recording mode, like the recording icon, and the time you have recorded so far, and so on. Now for the playback, obviously it has different details, like the icon that indicates your previewing of footage. Also, it has the date when this footage was recorded. Also, the progress and the length of the video and controls to pause and play or mute the footage, and other controls. So from these details, we can indicate which view the device is currently in. But as we saw in the video, these details were blurred. And one of these important details is the date. So we think this could be a playback for a footage that was recorded a while ago from another place, and that's why they hide the date and other details and claim they are showing us a real-time recording. Now, there's another thing that caught my attention, which is the cameraman. You will notice that he will not show us the place directly from his camera the moment he arrives at the spot. The video will jump directly to recording the device we have seen before. He could just ask the soldiers to step back to film that spot, but he didn't do that. Now, I have one last mysterious thing about this clip. I want you to pay attention to the audio. Here I have downloaded the video and opened it in Premiere Pro. You can do the same with any other video editing tool and check that for yourself. Now, let's listen.
Next to his house, there is a tunnel. Now I want to show you an operational.
We still remember the IDF claimed this was a footage video, but we found another edit was done to the video. We don't know why IDF muted this part. Maybe the IDF spokesman was talking to the soldiers to not leave their places so that the cameraman can't record directly the spot, or he was telling the cameraman to not record the spot. Or maybe it could be something else. But for sure this is another sneaky edit the IDF did that we have to include. Conclusion? IDF makes this part very hard to believe as we examined. They can make it more simple and convincing by just allowing the cameraman recording the whole place, including the spot that has the tunnel directly. Adding to that, the silence part and the blur on the edges of the device's screen makes it harder to swallow this evidence. Now, to the part 3. Again, let's watch it first.
Now I want to show you an operational tunnel. The tunnel is built with electricity. We first saw the solar panels, then the electricity goes here, and it goes down directly to the tunnel. Now you can see the tunnel. You can see the tunnel. The tunnel is let down more than 20 meters down. The rowboat found a door that is bulletproof. It's explosive proof, so it looks like a hard evidence, a clear evidence that the hospital direction is connected. This is a cover tunnel. It's part of the same floor, and it slides down here. So it's a cover tunnel, so nobody can find it. This is Rantisi Hospital. And this is the place where I showed you the tunnel. I want you to see.
Now, you may say this one for sure is a tunnel. But let me shock you, this is an elevator. Let us expose this one too. Now, as we can see clearly in the video, these are the parts of an elevator, which are guide rails, counterweight, steel cables, elevator traveling cable, and then the pit lather. Now let's check if these parts exist on an elevator. We did a simple search on YouTube and we already found a lot of examples. First, we will show a 3D simulation video so that everyone understands how elevators work. And then we will show all the parts in real elevators. Let's watch.
Let's go over some basic parts of the elevator. Now, there's a lot of different elevator companies and different ways to make elevators. Some of the mechanisms and names will be slightly different depending on the elevator. So keep that in mind. This is called the shaft, or the hoistway. The elevator pit at the very bottom. Then we have the cab, which moves up or down inside the shaft. And these are the guide rails. The cab usually has guide rollers to move it along the rails. At the very top is the machine room. This is where you'll find the electric motor. The motor pulls the cables by turning the sheave, which is basically a special kind of pulley. On one side, the cables go down and attach to the cab, and on the other side, it attaches to the counterweight. The counterweight moves opposite to the elevator cab. So why do we have this counterweight? Without the counterweight, the motor would have an enormous amount of tension on only one side. It would have to work a lot harder to lift or lower the cab. The counterweight makes it so that there is less strain on the motor. All it has to do is tip the balance so the elevator moves up or down. This is the controller box. It's like the brains of the elevator, simply moving it up and down. Not all traction elevators are going to have a dedicated machine room. They're able to fit the motor and other components at the very top of the elevator shaft. They refer to this as a machine roomless elevator, or MRL. We won't go into detail about these, but I at least want to mention them so you know that they exist.
Now, after you have seen the basic parts of elevators, Let's compare these basic parts with the IDF video. Let's start with guide rails. As you can see, they're placed opposite of each other, and they have a shape that looks like the letter T. Now let's see the IDF video. As you can see here, we have the same thing. They're placed opposite of each other and have the shape of the letter T like in this picture. You can search these parts in Google and see for yourself. Now to the next one, the counterweight. It moves contrary to the cab. If it's down, it means the cab is up, and vice versa. Now let's take a look at the IDF video. As you can see, this is the counterweight. Also, these are the cables that connect the counterweight with the cab. Now obviously we don't see the cab because it's at the bottom, because it moves contrary to the counterweight, and that's why we saw the counterweight on the top. Now, let's see real videos for these parts we have discussed so far. Then we will continue to the next ones. Now, here you can see immediately the parts we have analyzed. This is the guide reels and this is the counterweight. This is another video. Again, we see the counterweight here, and the guide rails here, and this is the cab. Now to the next part, the elevator traveling cable. You will notice this flat cable is connected to the control panel. As you can see, even Mr. IDF Spokesman helped us on this one. We'll talk about the control panel later. Now let's focus back on the cable. This flat cable is known for its flat shape, which makes it easy to be distinguished from any cable. They are designed specifically for elevators. Its job is transferring data between the cab and the control panel. Now, let's see this flat cable in some videos we found. As you can see the flat cable here. Let's check more. Now the pit ladder. It's simply a built-in ladder that can help technicians access elevator parts. If there's any issue with the elevator, again, let's share some videos. As you can see, this is the pit ladder. This is another one. And again, another one. Now, let's jump to the control panel. It's called also the controller box. We have already seen it in the 3D simulation video, but let's refresh our memory quickly.
This is the controller box. It's like the brains of the elevator, safe for moving it up and down.
Now let's see if this is a control panel. Let's zoom in for a second on this device. Let's assume you don't know it. This is an inverter. It's a part of elevator control panel. There are different modules of it, but they serve the same job, which is controlling the movement and the speed of elevators. Now let's see some videos. This video talks about the components of the elevator. As you can see here, the inverter we have talked about. Let's watch the video.
Used to operate the movements, speed, and torque of an elevator.
As you have heard, it is used to control movements of elevators. Let's see another one. As we have seen, this control panel belongs to the elevator. Now to the last part, which is the elevator's motor. Again, if you remember from the 3D simulation video, we saw there's another type of elevator. Let's watch first.
Not all traction elevators are going to have a dedicated machine room. They're able to fit the motor and other components at the very top of the elevator shaft. They refer to this as a machine roomless elevator, or MRL. We won't go into detail about these, but I at least want to mention them so you know that they exist.
As you can see, the MRL elevator doesn't have the motor on the top of the ceiling, it's underneath it. Also, there's another thing about the MRL motors: they are small and positioned on top of the counterweight so that it can balance the cab and the counterweight. This is just a 3D simulations of the MRL elevator. We will see real videos on YouTube in a second. Then we'll go back to show you the location of the motor in the IDF video. Now let's watch. In first glance, we can see the motor here and the ceiling, and we'll see the counterweight below the motor in a second. Let's watch another one. Now here you can see the ceiling. And this is the motor. Again, this is the motor here and the ceiling, and the counterweight below it directly. Now, back to the IDF video. We tried to find the best frame that helps us to see the motor's location, which is this one. As we said before this, the motor is placed on top of the counterweight. Now you may say, hold on, we don't see any motor here. And yes, you're correct, the only thing you see right now is the motor's base. Let's zoom in for a second to see it. You can see here clearly. The motor's base is connected to the building. The only thing prevents us from seeing the motor completely is the second cover. which was not opened. As you see in this frame, this is the second cover. Let's see a simulation of what we're saying. As you can see, the IDF opened just one cover, and that's why we're seeing only the motor's base. If they open the second one, we'll see the whole thing. But of course, the IDF didn't do that, because it will expose them, but what they don't know is they are exposed already. We have seen and confirmed to you all the other parts of the elevator. And this for sure is an elevator, not a tunnel, meaning they are at the top of the building. Now this explains another sneaky thing the IDF did. Let's see what I am talking about.
We first saw the solar panels. The
IDF didn't show us these solar panels he pointed at, because they're close to his head, and again this means they are on top of the building. Now you will see next where this presumed tunnel location. Let's watch.
Place where I showed you the tunnel. I want you to see.
Now for those who still believe IDF. I bet they are looking now at their screen like this. Let me save you from some strain. You will not find anything in this place. You can pause and keep staring. This place doesn't look any near to the place he showed us before. Now let me help you with this. We found on YouTube the IDF report for this video to know more information. Let's see what Mr. IDF spokesman will say regarding that place.
Show you. Click. This is the tunnel.
Again, he didn't provide anything to back up his claim, like showing us more images of that place from different angles or highlighting the presumed tunnel, or just something that can help to swallow this lie. What ended up doing was just randomly pointing to the screen. Now we have talked about this presumed tunnel a lot. Let's zoom out a little bit and focus on Mr. IDF spokesman himself. I want you to focus on his face and body language while he delivers this lie, and sense if this man is telling the truth or not. We'll play it for 2 times.
This is the tunnel. This is the tunnel.
I don't know about you, but for me this man doesn't look innocent. Anyway, in the end, we know the tunnel they claimed before is for sure an elevator. And that's what matters. Now, to the last part of this video, which is hospital's basement. Let's watch it first, then we'll analyze it.
This is the back side of the hospital. Hamas used this hospital. Tonight we have entered into this building. I will show you the evidence. Let's enter into the hospital. We're now entering into the area of the hospital where we had found the evidence. This operation was conducted by Israeli Special Unit.
Wait, did you just get yourself injured? Wow, that was fast, bro. Also, we noticed the wound disappeared again in the report of that video. I already started smelling sneaky stuff from IDF.
The Israeli Navy SEALs, this is still an operation that is conducted. And I'm showing you the first evidence to see. We are now in the area of the basement of the hospital. I want to show you a room where we found all the gear, the operational gear of Hamas. Hamas is using hospitals, like we showed the evidence in Shifa Hospital. In other hospitals, we are now seeing it in live in Rantisi Hospital. The operation is still conducting right now. Look at what Hamas is holding inside the hospital. I want you to understand, this kind of gear is a gear for a major fight. These are explosives. These are vest with explosives. Yeah, it's a body vest for terrorists to explode on forces. Among hospitals, among patients, we have hand grenades, Kalashnikovs. And then we have the RPGs. People shooting RPGs from hospitals. This is Hamas, firing RPGs from hospitals. The world has to understand who is Israel fighting against. We're now in the basement. And in this basement, we found a motorcycle. They were all used in the massacre of the 7th of October. They even have bullets in this motorcycle. So they came back from the massacre on the 7th of October into Rantisi Hospital with hostages on a motorcycle. We're still researching this. Yards from here, we find the chair, a woman, clothes, and a rope. A rope next to the legs. And look above this. Look above it. It's a baby bottle. It's a baby bottle in the basement. Above a World Health Organization sign. This is a suspicion for an area where hostages were being held. We're now looking at an infrastructure. You don't need to build something improvisedly in a hospital in the basement. Unless you want to hold someone in the basement, you don't want anyone to see him. Again, we're in the same basement, and here we see diapers, and we see, I don't know, maybe something. We see diapers. I want you to see this room. It's in the basement of the hospital. We can see this area is a closed area from the rest of the hospital. We can see the ventilation air that was done improvisedly to this area. And we can see infrastructures that was built in here, toilets, shower, a small kitchen, will provide the terrorists their needs. Also conduct a hideout where terrorists take hostages and hide out. And I will show you now the evidence. You're now entering into the room where we suspect the hostages were being held. I want you to look at this room. People are putting curtains with nothing above, just wall. No reason to put here a curtain unless you want to film hostages and deliver movies. And I will show you more evidence. In this room, there is a list. This list, in Arabic, this list says, we are in operation. The operation against Israel started in the 7th of October. This is a Guardian list where every terrorist writes his name and every terrorist has his own shift guarding the people that were here.
The first time I watched this part, I was waiting for IDF to show us that they found a tunnel in the basement of the hospital. But as you saw, they didn't even mention any tunnel in the first place. This is very suspicious. How IDF keeps claiming that there are tunnels under hospitals, but still they haven't found one underneath any hospital. This report was shared by IDF itself on YouTube and shows what we are talking about.
Hamas terrorists operate inside and under Shifa Hospital and other hospitals in Gaza Hamas also has an entrance to those terror tunnels from inside the hospital wards. Meaning, from different places of the hospital, you can go into an underground tunnel.
So from this report we understand that IDF claimed that Hamas headquarters are underneath hospitals, and they can be accessed using multiple tunnels inside the hospital. Now this logically means that if there's any tunnel in this hospital, it should be in the basement. Now the question that the IDF doesn't want us to ask is why didn't they find any tunnel in the basement they showed us? Unless there's nothing beneath the Rantisi hospital in the first place. So, what the IDF should do to cover up this embarrassing question? Now this is where the creativity of IDF kicks in. They went through another narrative, which is that the basement itself is Hamas operation base. But even this narrative has a lot of flaws, let us show you. Now we still remember the IDF claim that this video is raw footage, meaning there are no edits or cuts on the video. But believe it or not, we found 29 cuts that were done in this part only, plus another for places of audio being muted. Let's see them quickly. The red ones are cuts while the green ones are for muted audio. We'll play the audio after showing you all of these cuts. This was heavily edited, as you can see. I bet even Hollywood films don't have that many cuts in a scene, but this is IDF production. Everything in steroids. As you see, after seconds you find a cut or a jump to another place, without showing us how they went there. This already indicates a lot of things going on in this part. I remembered while I was counting these cuts, I was thinking about the IDF when they produced this video, and posted it on a title of exclusive raw footage. I mean, how dare these people lie like that? In things that are very easy to be exposed. I don't know about you, but this makes me sick. Let's see now the audio.
We are now.
This is the second one.
You see diapers. I want you to see this room.
This is the third one.
Show you now the evidence. You're now entering into.
This is the fourth one.
Here.
As you see, another sneaky edit by the IDF. We don't know why the audio is muted suddenly on these parts, but it is something we should mention. Now with the first part.
I want you to understand, this kind of gear is a gear for a major fight.
We found on YouTube a CNN reporter who covered this part also. Let's see what he says.
Okay?
This was the Hamas armory.
Yeah.
He shows us a few rusting guns and some explosives.
Now let's see another reporter from ABC News.
Those AK-47s look pretty old and rusty. I mean, was this a crack force that was here?
No, some of the gear was operational gear, but also some of the terrorists fled away.
As you heard, even the reporters are suspicious about this gear. And what makes this more funny is the response of the IDF spokesman. You can tell on his face that he didn't like that question. Let's play it again.
I mean, was this a crack force that was here?
No, some of the gear was operational gear, but also some of the terrorists fled away.
This is very doubtful. How a military base only has this fewer gear that already looks rusty? Also another thing. The IDF said before that Hamas members ran away with hostages, but they left 3 laptops that we can see here clearly. Another question arises why Hamas members left these laptops. They would have a lot of sensitive information, and they are more important than a hostage. I mean, Hamas has roughly 140 hostages. It's a clear decision to take the laptops rather than a hostage if they can't take both of them, but we don't see this happening here. We went to the report of this video to see if he could provide us more info about the laptops, like if they found something on them. Let's see what he says.
Inside this room, there is an armory with grenades, vests, bombs, RPGs. In a basement that was supposed to be a basement for children.
As you see, he mentioned everything in that room except the laptops. He didn't say a word about them, like even if they weren't there in the first place. That's very weird, because these laptops are gold in the hands of the IDF. Just imagine how much data they will find. Conclusion? After we analyzed this gear, we saw a lot of flaws in it that make it hard to believe. We think this was made by the IDF to cover up their disappointment of not finding tunnels in that basement. Now, let's see the place where the hostages were held.
A woman, clothes, and a rope. A rope next to the legs. And look above this. Look above it. It's a baby bottle. It's a baby bottle in a basement. Above, a World Health Organization sign.
Now, I want to share with you a report from Ron-TC Hospital. That was recorded by the France 24 News channel before the IDF went inside that hospital. Let's watch.
Al Ron-TC Hospital should be a place of healing. Instead, it's become a place where people are struggling to just survive day to day. A place of shelter, even though it hasn't escaped the Israeli bombardments. A place of shelter, even though it hasn't escaped the Israeli bombardments.
Death would be easier than this life. What kind of life are we living? People around the world in all countries are living. We are not living. Every 2 years there's a war. There's no water, no food, there's nothing to drink, there's no justice.
As we have heard in this report, the hospital has also a lot of displaced civilians who lost their homes. So these things you saw in the basement are for these people taking shelter. And one of them is this device. This device is called a Muslim tasbih counter finger. You can search on Google and check that for yourself. It's used by Muslims to count their zikr. You noticed that it's also pink. So these things belong to a displaced woman in Gaza with her kid, while taking shelter there, as we saw in the report, and not to an Israeli woman. Even the IDF spokesman agrees with us for a moment.
In a basement was supposed to be a basement for children to hide in.
Now let's see what he will say after seconds.
This is in the basement. No babies should be in the basement.
What? Let's play that again.
In a basement was supposed to be a basement for children to hide in. This is in the basement. No babies should be in the basement.
So based on your logic, this basement is only for 3 years plus people. Maybe you should put this sign on the entrance of the basement. This man is hilarious for real. Let's go to another part. Now, let's see another funny moment of him where a reporter requests proof of hostages being held in the basement. The reporter was the same one who embarrassed him before, about the gears being rusty.
Those AK-47s look pretty old and rusty. I mean, was this a crack force that was here?
No, some of the gear was the operational gear, but also some of the terrorists fled away.
Again, the reporter will ask another embarrassing logical question. Let's see how the IDF spokesman handles it.
Gari revealing that chair, and we pressed the Israeli military for evidence that hostages were held here. Gari,
what makes you think that this was a spot where somebody was held hostage?
We're going to bring here a forensic team. The only reason I brought you here, and I'm taking a huge risk.
Again, the reporter embarrassed him, and the IDF didn't provide any evidence that proves this place held hostages. Now this is the first time I agreed with Mr. IDF spokesman when he said to the reporter,
the only reason I brought you here, and I'm taking a huge risk.
Yes, you're taking a huge risk of exposing yourself. Now next one.
Above, just wall. No reason to put here a curtain, unless you want to film hostages and deliver movies.
Nobody put curtains behind the wall.
Are you sure about that? First of all, these kinds of curtains are called decorative curtains. And you can see all over the internet people decorating their walls with this kind of curtains. Perhaps you lack a sense of decoration. Now to the list. This one is a banger for sure. Let's watch.
In this room, there is a list. This list, in Arabic, this list says, we are in an operation. The operation against Israel started in the 7th of October. This is a Guardian list, where every terrorist writes his name, and every terrorist has his own shift, guarding the people that were here.
Now let's give him applause. Finally, he showed us hard evidence. But there's one small problem with this list. It's not a list of names, it's an agenda. Idiot. Your hard evidence has already been debunked by many news media. Let's see one of them.
So in fact, the document was debunked by many Arabic speakers online who found the claim to be false. So if we take a closer look at the poster itself, now here at the top, it does say Al-Aqsa flood, and there is indeed the date of the 7th of October there as well, but there are no Hamas agents' names on this sheet whatsoever. In fact, there are no names at all. The only text here that's here in Arabic, the only names here are in fact the days of the week. Now we also saw in that video the IDF spokesman kind of signaling from left to right when he was showing the paper, but Arabic is in fact read and written from right to left, which means that the paper would in fact, and the names would in fact be read this way. Now, if we also do a little comparison with the days of the week in Arabic, we can indeed see that they match. So what we have here is the 7th of October, which was a Saturday, and we can see that it does match the text for a Saturday, and that continues throughout the paper. We can see Sunday. If we have a closer look there at Sunday, it does match the text for Sunday, and that continues all the way across this paper. I also have this document validated by our colleagues at France 24 Arabic, who confirmed that the only names written on this piece of paper were in fact the days of the week. Now, this document could be a simple hospital rota, hospital planning schedule, but it's important to note that having the days of the week on there doesn't confirm that it isn't a Hamas document. It doesn't confirm that Hamas wasn't present in the hospital. What we do know, and what is absolutely certain here, that there are no names of any agents or names in general on that paper apart from the days of the week, Delano.
So what did Israel have to say? Did it backpedal at all?
Well, the IDF did mention this again, but it stopped short of issuing an official correction, shall we say. Just one day after that original post that we saw there, this was also posted by IDF's official accounts, in which they specifically referred to the document found there as a calendar. Now, this was also mirrored by a post of the Arabic language IDF spokesman, who also referred to the days of the week in the document in a post a day later. But there was no mention by the IDF after this of the list of names, or in fact, the fact that the IDF had been the ones to make that claim.
As you saw, this was just an agenda. Again, IDF failed to establish anything on this part. Conclusion? This video is just a bunch of lies stitched to one another by IDF production, trying to succeed in establishing their propaganda, only succeeding in exposing their own falsehoods. Also notice they lied again in the description of that video. They said the IDF spokesman walked through one of Hamas' subterranean terrorist tunnels, only to exit in Gaza's Rantisi hospital on the other side. As you saw in the video, this man didn't enter any tunnel. Here we go again, encountering an absurd and boldly stated lie. Oh, I almost forgot. A big shout out to this man for making the entire video entertaining and enjoyable.